Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our August meeting, or actually September meeting. I'm sorry, I'm behind. I'm sorry I cannot be there today, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brown, if you don't mind to chair the meeting, Mr. Brown.
Right. Thank you, Madam Dunn. Let's have an advocation. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we pause at this time, Lord, just to acknowledge you and thank you. You're the giver of life and the sustainer of everything. And Lord, we just pray your blessings on this meeting on now. Lord, we want to lift up those who are tuning in remotely, Father, that wherever they are, that they remain safe. And be with those of us who drove down here this morning. Keep us safe as we travel back. Especially that thanks all of our staff. Father, be with us during this meeting. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The board meeting this morning, we have the approval of minutes. So I have a motion, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second in discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Aye. Ayes have it.
Aye.
Now we have the report on the projects for September letting. Albert Shelby.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and members of the board. I am here to present the projects the department is proposing to advertise in the October 2021 letting. Before we present October, here are the FY 2022 results. We have led a total of 48 projects in FY 22. This chart shows the number of projects by improvement type. The value of these 48 projects is approximately $186 million through the August 2021 bid awards, with 46 GDOT let projects worth approximately $185 million and 2 local let projects worth $450,000. This next chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type, with maintenance, bridge, and road projects making up the bulk of the improvement types. Here are the results of the July 2021 letting. Of the 22 GDOT let contracts presented to the board, 20 were awarded and 2 were rejected from the letting. The rejections were PI 0006328, which is Brampton Road Connector, due to unclear de-energization times for Georgia Power Transmission lines, and PI 0016985, which is State Route 25 from Yacht Road to Harry Driggers Boulevard, due to only one responsive bidder whose bid was too high compared to GDOT's estimate. Brampton is now in the January 2022 letting, and State Route 25 is now in the November 2021 letting. Now I'm going to discuss the projects in the October 2021 letting. We have a total of 19 projects, and all were GDOT let. The next 2 slides list those 19 projects arranged by congressional district. So as you can see with this map slide, we are letting a variety of projects throughout the state to address bridge, capacity, maintenance, and safety issues. The first highlighted project will widen State Route 133 to a 4-lane facility with a depressed grass median. This project will begin at County Line Road and extend to Holly Drive for 8.11 miles. This project is one of five projects along State Route 133 connecting Albany in Dougherty County to Moultrie in Worth County. It will be the third of the 5 projects in this corridor to let. This corridor is part of the Governor's Road Improvement Program, also known as GRIP. The next project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on State Route 22 spur over Werricobbe Creek. The existing bridge was constructed in 1925, 96 years ago. And here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced. This next project will resurface State Route 34 from State Route 14 to State Route 16 to the Coweta-Fayette County line for 11.35 miles. This section was last repaved in 2003 which is 18 years ago, and is another example of our continued commitment to maintaining our existing infrastructure. This next project is a replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Jacks Creek Road over Jacks Creek. The existing bridge was constructed in 1961, 60 years ago. Here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced. The final highlight is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on New Forest Road over Otter Creek. The existing bridge was constructed in 1962, 59 years ago. And here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced.
Good morning. I'll present the TIA projects for the October letting. TIA has two projects in Emmanuel County. That's Congressional District 12 in the heart of Georgia Omaha region that are letting in October. One of them is the Odomville Church Road resurfacing. This project will consist of leveling, resurfacing, and shoulder widening for approximately 1.6 miles of Odomville Church Road from Foskey Road to Meeks Road, and Pendleton Springs Road resurfacing, which consists of the same scope for approximately 3.6 miles from Harrington Street to the end of pavement in Emmanuel County. This represents a total of 5.2 miles of resurfacing and shoulder widening and an investment of approximately $900,000 in the heart of Georgia region.
Thank you, Kenneth. Oops. So we have 19 projects proposed for the October 2021 letting. This chart shows the distribution by improvement types. The estimate of the projects in the October 2021 letting is approximately $111 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type. I now ask for consideration for approval of the proposed projects presented for the October 2021 letting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll have the approval of the visions of the construction work program by Matt Markham.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner. This is actually not for action today. I'm bringing to you one project that is going to be brought back to you next month for approval. So I'm giving you a heads up this month of one proposed addition to the construction work program. That would be to replace a structurally deficient bridge in Ware County. It's State Route 4 business and US 1 business and Congressional District 1. So that'll be an addition to the program. I'm just giving you a heads up for it this month, and then I'll come back next month and ask for your action on that. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take that.
Okay. So you don't need any approvals today?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions by anyone? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now the state freight plan update. I met Janine Miller. Oh, she's going to be virtual. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, that's a good sign. That means you can hear me. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to present today on a very exciting set of activities we have going on in the planning office. Next slide. It relates to freight and logistics, which really starts with our customers in freight and logistics. Those are our companies that are doing business here in the state today, and those that are expanding and locating new facilities in Georgia. Would like to capture that sense of our customers with what was announced in August last month by the Department of Economic Development. 379 companies in fiscal year 21 announced that they would expand or locate in the state, announcing $11 billion in private investment. That's an exciting dollar amount, and it shows just how vital our infrastructure is when you think about 57% of those being logistics-enabled companies, or $6.3 billion of investment occurring to do business with activities that require inbound cargo and outbound goods to customer that rely on our transportation network, especially our roads. Particular relevant industries include manufacturing and automotive, where last year there were announced $2.9 billion of private investment by 186 companies, creating more than 10,000 jobs. In logistics and distribution, more than $1 billion by 52 companies were announced, creating ultimately more than 6,400 jobs. And the really very exciting one as well was the agribusiness and food processing, $1.76 billion by 53 companies, creating more than 5,800 jobs. And that was the biggest growth category that we had in logistics-enabled companies this year. Next slide. And this indicates, I think, why the governor has one of his strategic goals that we have developed our state strategic plan around, including expansion of Georgia's role as a world-renowned hub for global commerce. Next slide. So our vision for our freight industry and how we support that with our transportation network, we have a vision and mission that really guide us, that we will be the global gateway of choice, providing reduced time to market, superior supply chain efficiency, and reliability from destination to end customer. That vision has us on a mission to continue to improve our freight network statewide, its capacity, capability, and connectivity, so that we can continue our competitive advantage that benefits all Georgians. Next slide. So as a result of the statewide strategic plan that you all thankfully approved in February, we have been acting on that strategic plan where we are making decisions over the long term, an average of $2.4 billion of investment each year, and including foundational, catalytic, and innovation investment strategies for 3 portfolios, including freight and logistics mobility across Georgia. And the information, if there's a desire to look more closely at that as a refresher, is on the state strategic plan on page ES, or Executive Summary 6, really encapsulates all of this, and that's found, of course, on our GDOT website. Next slide. A little bit more about that framework that's guiding us, that is derived from Governor Kemp's strategic goals, the board's priorities that you all have articulated over time and recently, created this state strategic plan where we are investing in our physical assets and maintaining our foundational system, catalyzing economic development and bringing forward innovation, while we're also advancing our planning for the future with plans, programs, projects, and partnerships that generate a high-performing system on 3 tracks of work: statewide freight and logistics, people mobility in Metro Atlanta, and people mobility in emerging metros in rural Georgia. Those are the things that are feeding into what we are now undertaking with the State Freight and Logistics Action Plan Update, or a business plan for freight infrastructure. Next slide. A few data points I think that are also helpful and important. Just to know that the latest data we have for statewide movement, 315 million tons in a year, valued at more than $292 billion. Now, that data is 4 years old, and we're going to be refreshing that with this upcoming freight plan, with total truck volume on our state route system of almost 25 million trucks a day. We will have updated figures for all of these things, but what it really comes down to is clarity around our infrastructure, those last 2 bullet points, to make sure we are continuing to focus on the structurally deficient bridges that need continued upgrading and continue refreshing to keep our economy going, especially those heavy trucks, as well as our active rail crossings, more than 5,000 rail crossings on public roads, over 4,700 miles of rail throughout the state, which is the most in the Southeast. We have a lot of infrastructure to maintain, and we want to improve it so we can stay competitive. So next slide. That is what brings us to the statewide freight and logistics plan update. I'll tell you a little bit about that here. Next slide. As examples, of foundational investments that we are going to be looking at evaluating around the state is grade crossing safety. Those are not just to prevent collisions, but also to address where we might have blocked crossings as rail traffic picks up statewide. Catalytic investment, continuing to focus on economic development. One of the opportunities is around the grad sites. That stands for Georgia Ready for Accelerated Development. That is work that's done by the Georgia Department of Economic Development in coordination with local economic development authorities throughout the state, rural and metro areas, that are places where there have been advanced work to get sites available and ready for quick decision-making by site location, opportunities for growth in agriculture, food processing, manufacturing, automotive, and other types, distribution. There are transportation improvements that we're going to be focusing on around those sites to make sure the trucks can ingress and egress efficiently and effectively throughout the state. And then lastly, innovation, investing in continuing our technology advancements. Georgia DOT is one of the best sets of technology applications throughout the state, especially related to trucks, for helping in safety as well as efficient movement, and going to evaluate how we can continue to invest in those really, really important advancements, both today and for our future. So these, once again, in the statewide strategic plan, pages 52 through 55, give more information about these things that we're focused on. But as we go into the plan, next slide, we're taking a look at the evolution of freight tonnage throughout the state. And there's a lot of graphics on this slide, but I do want to help focus on this, the blue here. Those are by mode, that's air and multiple modes, but particularly railroad and truck, how much there is growth going to be occurring in those modes for agribusiness, agriculture, as well as in the kind of light orange, peachy colored growth in those modes for those sectors. What this is a very first look at the types of data we're going to be using as we evaluate what our customers, what our shippers need from our transportation network to continue their business in efficient, safe, and reliable ways. Next slide. A little closer look at manufacturing that we're going to see grow over the coming decades through 2050. 77%, we believe, growth in manufacturing, particularly in those darker blue counties. As you can see, that a lot of that is in Northeast Georgia, but there is manufacturing growth we're going to see throughout the state, including in South Georgia, 77% in manufacturing over the next 3 decades. Next slide. Also, in addition to manufacturing, a strong agriculture growth, 43% over the coming decades throughout the state. Once again, of course, in Northeast Georgia, but also definitely in South, the major production sites there. That roadway network, those bridges, we are going to be evaluating the capacity, the connectivity, and the capabilities of our network, and advancing our infrastructure investments to support this growth. And next slide. Of course, e-commerce is something that has grown tremendously over the past year. And so, in fact, year over year, e-commerce growth nationwide has been above 9%. And we see that as a new paradigm we're looking at for trucks on our roadways, distance of travel, and where those origin points and destination points are. The last mile, certainly, but also where we're seeing burgeoning distribution centers on the fringe of metro areas. There's a lot of truck movement, and more of the cargo that gets to our points of consumption at our households and our businesses. More and more of that is flowing to that final destination point on a freight vehicle of some sort rather than in a personal vehicle as a result of e-commerce. So we're keeping a very close eye on this, and we'll be evaluating and building in data about e-commerce. So lastly, as we kick off this work, I wanted to give you this next slide here about what boxes we'll be checking as we do this freight plan. We're going to have robust private sector stakeholder engagement, very close collaboration with the Atlanta Regional Commission, who are also embarking upon freight planning update. We're going to look at our freight network, which currently aligns very closely with the GRIP network that Albert referred to earlier today. We'll be looking at truck parking supply and recommended solutions in partnership with private sector and other entities who can target the best ways to avail safe parking for our truckers throughout the state when they need it. Supply chain focused investments on our network performance, looking at strategic and infrastructure opportunities with an unprecedented insight into our freight flows using business focused data. We're going to be doing a Georgia version of what is now available from the Federal Highway Administration. That nationwide freight fluidity is going to be created here for Georgia, and we're very excited about this. And next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. Based on, this is private sector data. These are the exact points of data that companies who are moving cargo, whether they own it or whether they're carriers or third-party logistics companies, look at this exact same data we're going to be bringing into our infrastructure analysis. This particular network of flow of goods is in food products, manufacturing, food processing, for those commodities listed there, including fresh and frozen processed meats, poultry, baked goods, fruits, vegetables. Those origin destination points and the thickness of those lines indicate the demand on our road and rail networks that we'll be evaluating the capacity and that projected growth, whether we have the capacity and where we might need to improve it and continue to ensure good maintenance of our roads and bridges on those high demand corridors. So this will be Georgia's freight fluidity will be based on this. And next slide. This is simply an indication of the timing that we're targeting here. We're going to be kicking off soon here early fall and begin our initial stakeholder outreach to the private industry as well as other stakeholders. And we're anticipating this work will take us a little over a year to accomplish, and we'll be submitting to Federal Highway Administration in January of 2023. And I do have to thank Matt Markham, Tom McQueen, Vivian Delgado, Tyler Graham, and the whole freight office, who has done an amazing job over the past several months of a very deliberative and highly constructive and productive procurement process, which we are very close to concluding here. So thank you for all your efforts and expertise to bring that forward. And that, with the last slide, concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Anyone? Thank you, Janine.
Thank you so much.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the budget presentation by Angela Whitworth.
Good morning, Secretary Brown.
Good morning.
Members of the board here in person and virtually. I'm here today to present the amended FY22 and fiscal year 23 budget request for your approval. I am pleased to say that yesterday afternoon, the governor's office reached out to us to give us updated revenue numbers, which were higher than the ones that I previously reported to you last month. I'll go through those. First off, though, I want to start with this federal reauthorization slide I brought to you last month. Currently with the IJJA going on, it's still out there pending. Looking to have some resolution by the end of the month. It looks like there'll be an increase in our OA of roughly $323 million in 22, an additional $353 million in 23, which will require an additional match. You can see highlighted in the bottom of both of those years. We'll be working through the budget process as the IJJA goes along through Congress. Starting off with the amended revenue numbers, as you can see here, there was an additional $32 million added in fees to our amended FY22 budget, as well as an additional $9.8 million, almost $10 million in rideshare fees, which brings our amended budget up to $2.1 billion. In this next slide, you'll see this is the summary of programs by category that I present to you. In the first one, you can see our largest category is capital projects with a little bit over $971 million, which makes up 45% of the budget. That consists of capital construction and capital maintenance and local roads admin. The next one you can see is general operations with $238 million. It makes up 11% overall of the budget. This program has departmental admin, program delivery, which used to be called construction admin. It got changed to program delivery. The program changed last budget session. You had data collections, planning, and traffic management. You can see we matched LMIG with a 10%. Routine maintenance is the second highest category we have here at $441 million. And then payments to CERTA, intermodal, the debt service, and payments to the ATL, which is now attached to the program, they all fall between 1% and 7%. Here is the layout of the program changes for the motor fuel side of the house. In the very first one, you can see in the GEO bond debt service, there was a fund source swap between fees. So we supplanted fees into the GEO bond debt service, which freed up $25.5 million to be redistributed amongst the other programs in our budget. Next, you'll see the $9.5 million in capital construction. This is to increase the delivery of more projects. And then finally, the remainder of the programs, you'll probably hear the commissioner highlight in the commissioner's report later on. This is targeting the recruitment and retention overall of employees throughout the department. You'll hear from the commissioner about our reduced headcount being reduced on a monthly basis and the net effect. So we want to target, and you'll see these funds going into those programs for recruitment and retention of employees. Next, you'll see on the next slide here is the fees and general funds. You can see the $25.5 million from the fund source swap that I talked about previously being put into the budget. And then in the intermodal, there's an additional $16.4 million added for additional funding for intermodal to bring those categories up to $181 million. The next slide is the FY23 revenue comparison. As you can see, there was additional $78 million being added to the budget. Excise increased by $48 million. The fee component was almost $21 million, and then in the rideshare fees, it was roughly a little bit over $8 million. On this next slide, again, it's the breakout comparison of the summary by category. Largest component by far is capital projects, which makes up 48%, leading secondly with routine maintenance, which makes up 20%. You can see general operations makes up 11% of the budget, as well as LMIG makes up 10%. You'll see a reduction in debt service for payments to CERTA, which makes up 2% of the overall budget. Intermodal makes up roughly the $137 million, makes up 2%. Intermodal, for some of the new board members to be mindful, that is airport aid, rail, transit, ports, and waterways. The GEO bond debt service makes up 6%, and finally, payments to the ATL makes up roughly 1%. On this next slide of the layout, you'll see there's an $87 million reduction. What this is overall is, one, it's a fund source swap between fees and motor fuel funds, as well as a lower debt service requirement makes up that category. The $98 million that you see here in capital maintenance, y'all may remember last session for the amended for the amended 21 and 22, we did a fund source swap with the COVID relief funds in that category. What this does, it restores that, it replaces those funds that we previously had for the COVID relief funds there. And then finally, the remaining programs that you see here is the 10% for match for LMIG, is the remaining of the categories go for recruitment and retention for employees that I previously talked about. On the next slide here, you'll see the GO bond debt service. You'll see the fee component being brought in of the 79, the fund sort swap of the fees. And then in payments to CERTA, you just see an overall true up of the debt service due to the lower debt service true up of the payment there. Payments to the ACTL stayed flat, no additions there. In intermodal, there was an additional $1.3 million needed in the transit program, in that sub-program. And the next one is the ride share component. In the ride share fees, you can see that we've allocated $9.9 million to go to the MARTA ATL. There's $2.4 million going into intermodal for the remainder of the FTA match. And then there's $3.5 million going into a rural transit program, which provides funding to advance regional transit efforts throughout the state. And then finally, you'll see the addition of $22.8 million needed for intermodal for airport aid, rail, ports, and waterways. Typically, the transportation fees are funding the roads, bridges, and debt service and transit, and so the remainder will be funding, the 22.8 will be funded with state general funds. If there's not any questions, Secretary Brown, I would ask for the board's favorable approval.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody on board? Okay, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thank
Motion's
you.
carried. Thank you. Now we have construction management general contractor by Mr. Andrew Haynick.
Haynick, very good.
Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner, members of the board. I'm Andrew Haynick. I'm the Alternative Delivery Program Manager for the department, and previously that meant the Design Build Program, but now also includes CMGC, and CMGC means Construction Manager General Contractor, and that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today. So the agenda for today in my presentation is to discuss HB 577 for just a little bit, and also dive into CMGC, what it is, how it works, where has it worked previously, and then also what our status is going forward from today and what we've been doing in terms of CMGC delivery up until now. So Josh gave a little small presentation about 577. I think it was April earlier this year. The legislation that was passed did include 3 delivery types, which was PDA, Preliminary Development Agreement, CDA, which is Comprehensive Development Agreement, and then also CMGC. And I'm going to focus on CMGC today. CMGC is a new delivery method that Federal Highway has approved for DOT use. And in Georgia, it's governed by 3282. Design Build is code 32281, and there's a little bit of cross-referencing between those two. So why use CMGC and how does it work? So I'm not going to read all of the benefits here, but it's important to realize CMGC is just one delivery method that we'll be using a little bit going forward. It's not for every project, but there are some benefits to using CMGC if the project fits. So one of the really important things to realize is it's a good way for proper risk allocation between the contractor and the department. What you do is you bring the contractor in much earlier into the process, and they're really involved with the design, and they're able to answer some questions about proper risk management and how to deliver the project, how to stage a project. So again, it's a really good way to have proper risk allocation. It also is a good way to enhance design quality. You bring the contractor in up front, and then they're able to review the design, and they're able to give feedback in terms of constructability, you know, how to construct a project, how the best way to stage the project is. And then also, I'll touch on one more of these benefits. There's a lot of studies across the nation that have shown CMGC really limits the change orders, the supplemental agreements on the post-let side. So because you're bringing the contractor up front and much earlier into the process, they're able to review the plans and they know the risks again. So it's you see a much larger reduction in terms of the change orders and the supplemental agreements on the post-let side. So how does it work and how does it compare with design build? There's similarities between design build and CMGC. One is the type of projects we're looking at. Design build is best for like $30 million kind of projects and up from there. And it's really good way to get innovation and the staging construction side of things. So for design build though, you have one contract with a contractor, and then typically what you see is the contractor has a sub for the design. So the designer works directly for the contractor, and then they're both contracted with the department. So there's actually more differences though between CMGC and design build. On CMGC, you can see your relationship there is actually two entities, two contracts, one with the designer and one with the construction manager. Again, you bring the construction manager into the process during design, but they are two separate contracts. They coordinate with each other, they collaborate, they talk about the reviews, they talk about the design. So the construction manager is there kind of with the designer, you know, answering questions, answering constructability, doing field plan reviews, looking at risks. So what happens is the designer of record will completely design the project, and you'll get to about 100% design or 90% design, and the construction manager then will provide a price. They'll provide their bid, and as long as the bid aligns with the department's estimate, then that construction manager will then become the general contractor. And once that happens, then the general contractor just delivers the project normally. They can choose to sub out to the work, to the subcontracts. They still have to self-perform 30% of the work, which meets a typical project. So all of this is still subject to the terms of successful negotiations. You can see there the independent cost estimator plays a vital role in CMGC. The independent cost estimator, again, is separate from the designer and the contractor, but they provide the estimate for bid comparison purposes. And typically, across the nation, we've seen the studies show that about 90% of the time, the construction manager bid matches the cost estimate, and you're able to move forward with that entity as the general contractor. There are times when that doesn't happen, where we have an independent cost estimate and they don't align with the bid. And in those cases, then the designer completes the design. You have a plan specification process, and you let the project as a typical design bid build contract. So this is a good slide to show the schedule efficiencies that can be gained from CMGC. The top graph shows traditional delivery, design bid build delivery. You design the project, and you advertise the specs, and then you select a contractor, usually on low bid, and then of course they construct a project. So it's a very linear process. It's, you know, one step after the other. In design build, there are some efficiencies. You're able to get to letting a little bit sooner by overlapping some of the preliminary engineering tasks, such as the advertisement of the contract with environmental document. So again, you're able to bring the contractor in a little bit sooner, and then they finish the final design. But then in CMGC, what you're doing is you're bringing the contractor in even sooner to be involved with the design, with the preliminary design and the final design. So because you bring the contractor in sooner, you don't have an advertisement period. Again, you basically just negotiate with the firm you already have. You're able to definitely get some schedule benefits as well. So what states have already done CMGC work? The blue states represent states that have DOTs that have the authority to deliver CMGC. Again, you can see Georgia's already in blue there. So there's a lot of states already doing CMGC across the nation. It's not really a new tool. It's just sort of an innovative method, new in terms of Georgia. I will mention, though, also GISFIC actually already has CMGC authority, and they have been delivering vertical construction projects for a while. So most states, though, use it sparingly, and for complex projects that require additional coordination or cooperation with the contractor. One good example of types of projects that we see a lot are accelerated bridge construction projects. We did one, of course, in Dade County near Tennessee that was design build because we didn't have the CMGC, but a lot of other states use CMGC with accelerated bridge construction, where you have tight traffic footprints, or you have complex staging, or you want to get schedule benefits as well. Those are all good examples of when CMGC could work. So one specific example that used CMGC across the nation is the I40 Bridge Reconstruction project. Y'all probably heard about this one, where the bridge from Memphis to Arkansas across the Mississippi River developed a fracture critical crack in the beam there. And so it didn't affect the whole bridge, but they obviously needed to address this immediately. Again, it's one of the main arteries outside of Memphis. So what they did is they already had a consultant on board that had done the inspection. So they used that same consultant, and then they hired a contractor. And the contractor and consultant worked together on developing the best approach for the project. And the way it worked was the designer developed temporary steel plates, and then the contractor ordered them and installed them. And while that was happening, the designer then went to the next stage and developed or designed the post-tensioning bars. And then those were passed to the contractor to develop. And then lastly, designer proposed the final design for steel plates that were installed then by the contractor. Again, you basically had packages where you overlap design and construction, and they work together to get the best strategy for the project. So this, obviously, it wasn't full bridge replacement, but they were able to get the bridge back open in 12 weeks using this iterative stage construction packages strategy. And both DOTs, Arkansas and Tennessee, and the consultant and contractor really felt that CMGC helped accelerate the schedule to get it back open. So again, we had this legislation passed this last year, and what have we been doing since that time? We've done a bunch of peer exchanges with state DOTs. We've reached out to Tennessee DOT and Minnesota DOT to really have a conversation with them about their best practices for CMGC and lessons learned. Again, what types of projects have they used? What has gone right? What has gone wrong? And what details do we need to consider in developing our strategy? We also do plan to reach out to JISFIC. I mentioned that they've already been doing CMGC in Georgia, so we have that conversation here in the next couple weeks. We've also been meeting with local consultant and contracting community. We had a good meeting with ACEC, which is the consultant community, and they had a few members across the nation. And again, that was a really good conversation about the right approach for CMGC. We also have a meeting scheduled with Georgia highway contractors to tell them about the process and how it's going to work, in case they don't have as much history with CMGC. And then last but not least, we obviously are working on state transportation board rules for approval. We hope to have that very shortly for y'all's approval. And then once we have the board approvals, board rules approved, we will be working on the CMGC manual too, which is a little bit lower level guidance document. That picture there is another example of a CMGC project across the nation, and that one was an accelerated bridge construction project where the contractor came in and opted to move the existing bridge onto temporary trestles, which then created more space for the permanent structure. So in summary, you can see the example on the right there, the picture. That's a really good vision of what CMGC can be. Again, you have the owner in control, and the owner is pushing the project, and it really lets you you push the project to meet the goals of the project. We're able to do that in design build a little bit, where you tailor the procurement to meet the goals of the project. But with CMGC, you're in control of the designer and the contractor. So you're all working really as a team to meet the goals of the department. Some of the benefits I touched on, again, are proper risk allocation. We see a lot of other states use it in terms of utilities or railroad. You bring the contractor in to say, how can you avoid this railroad entity? And you force that conversation between that third party. You do have increased department oversight versus design build. You can gain some schedule efficiencies that I touched on, and then higher cost certainty through fewer change orders and higher design quality as well. So we're continuing the conversation on researching best practices and just making sure we get it right the first time in terms of how the projects look and how the manuals should be worded. And then again, we will have the board rules for approval in the very near future. And that was it, but I can answer any questions if you would like.
Any questions? I know this is a very good process to have, they have options for when you're going to get projects done. So you made a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Next item we have is Strategic Highway Safety Plan by Sam Harris.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Harris, and I'm the State Safety Engineering Manager, and I want to thank the Commissioner, Madam Chair, the rest of the members of the board for having me here this morning to talk about the GDOT Safety Engineering Program, something I'm very enthusiastic about. So the takeaways for today's presentation, I'm going to highlight recent crash trends, really focus in on fatal crashes, talk about what is the GDOT Safety Engineering Program, and how do we streamline processes, be innovative, and increase efficiencies. So looking at the crash trends, this is a table as of 9/8/2021. The first things I want to highlight here are, this is a table showing route types, and I want to circle or square two main things. On your left, looking at 2019 to 2020, we had an increase in fatalities on roadways in our state. 2019, we saw a decrease after several years of increasing, so that was a good thing in terms of a trend. However, in 2020, even with the decrease in vehicle miles traveled due to the pandemic, we did see an increase in fatalities. Looking at year to date for 2020 to 2021, that trend is continuing. Main areas I want to highlight is on our interstate systems. So far, year to date, comparing 2020 to 2021, there's been a 16% increase on top of the increases that we saw comparative to 19 to 2020. Additionally, for our local system, for city streets, year to date, there's a 17% increase in fatalities when you compare 2020 to 2021 as it is to date on 9/8/2021. I also want to mention, in looking at 2019 to 2020, there were increases 25 to 28% on our county roads and city streets for fatalities. This table looks at fatalities broken down by emphasis type. This looks, the first thing I want to highlight is pedestrians and bikes. Pedestrian fatalities has had a steady increase, not only through 1920, but again, year to date with a 17% increase for 2020 to 2021 as of 9/8/2021. I want to highlight, when talking with my peers from other states, this is a trend that is developing and has developed in the Southeast that I want to be able to share with you. So Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Mississippi, etc. There is a highlight here, a positive trend for our bikes. As we did see an increase in 19 to 20, we have seen a decrease so far in 2020 to 2021. Additionally, when looking at intersections, so fatal crashes happening at intersections, we're seeing a 4% decrease so far year to date. In addition, roadway departure has seen a 6% decrease with a 2% increase in lane departure, and we'll see how those two categories shape out through the rest of 2021. But I'm going to come back to the 6% decrease for roadway departure in a couple of slides and give you my interpretation on why that we're seeing that number. One thing before I leave this slide, I want to be able to provide context. This is not just a Georgia problem in terms of increases in fatalities. This is a nationwide problem. Through 2020, we saw the highest in 13 years in terms of roadway fatalities on all roadways within the nation. That's over 42,000 people that have died in vehicle crashes. And that's with less vehicle miles traveled in 2020 as well. And the question that I would expect to have, why? What are the reasons that you're seeing that we see these increases in fatalities? Through my team's review of crash reports, and from a nation's perspective, when I talk to my peers in other states, it comes down to three main areas: distracted driving, speeding, and driving under the influence. Those are continuous trends that we see in the crash reports, especially with fatalities and serious injuries. So we recognize these are concerning trends, and through the safety engineering program, we accept that challenge to continue to make our roadways safer. So we're looking for every way to streamline processes and put Georgia safety first through innovation and proven safety countermeasures. So the funds that are used within the GDOT safety program are HSIP funds, so it's Highway Safety Improvement Program funds. These are federal safety funds that have very strict guidelines. They also require a data-driven approach. The total budget per year for the safety program is $100 million. And when given the opportunity to deliver additional projects, we're always willing to meet that expectation. For instance, in FY19, we delivered an additional $73 million on top of the $100 million that we were given for that particular year. We focused in on roadway departure, lane departure crashes with rumble strip projects, cable barrier projects, and wrong way driving projects. That 6% number I showed you in the table earlier, those projects were constructed, most of those projects were constructed in 2020, and I think we're already reaping the benefits from those projects with that decrease in that number. And again, in FY20, we delivered an additional $25 million on top of the $100 million. So what are the goals of the program? Quite straightforward: eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on Georgia roadways using a data-driven approach. The objectives of the program: reduce pedestrian, bicycle, roadway, lane departure, intersection, off-system, and high-risk rural road crashes, and align our goals with stakeholder and partners. Most importantly is the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, which we work together in building the Georgia Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and that covers the objectives and goals that I've outlined here. So how do we complete and how do we achieve the goals that I just listed? Well, in terms of safety, I can boil it down to two main things. Reduce conflict points, meaning reduce the ways that a vehicle can get into a crash with another vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, etc., and reduce speed. So what I have an example here is looking at a full access intersection. This is 4 legs, 4 approaches to the regular intersection. This could be signalized or unsignalized, but there's 32 conflict points, meaning there's 32 different ways that you can get into a crash at a regular 4-legged intersection. If we replace that with a roundabout, as an example, it takes 32 conflict points and narrows it down to 8. In addition, the roundabout in design reduces speeds as it enters the intersection. So we see if there are crashes within the roundabout, they are often less severe in nature. When looking at our more vulnerable roadway users, especially pedestrians, I think this graphic is really telling. Looking at 20 miles per hour, a vehicle going 20 miles per hour, and it strikes a pedestrian, there's a 10% chance that will result in a fatality with the pedestrian. Increase that by 10 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, that 10% increases to 40% chance of a fatality. Increase it 10 more miles per hour to 40 miles per hour, that increases that 40%, doubling it to 80% chance of fatality resulting in that pedestrian. So how do we do our analytics? You've heard me say that a couple times. Data-driven safety analytics. This is what is required from us from the federal safety funds. Well, there's a program called Numetric. It came online about a year to year and a half ago, and this is free to any local stakeholder. We've made it available. It also, training-wise, is free. I couldn't even explain to you that the efficiencies that have increased and the resource management that we're able to do. Instead of spending months analyzing crash data, we can quickly do it in a shorter period of time with this program. So what does this program look like? Well, here's a snapshot of it whenever you first enter the program. On the left-hand side, you can see the state of Georgia with a heat map of crashes. On the right-hand side, you can see several metrics that would appear, such as crash severity, manner of collision, time of day. So again, just from seeing this, you can see how powerful this tool is. Over on the top left, you could put in any filter you want into this application. Anything that's on a crash report, you can filter by. And there's many more filters that my team has developed to be able to increase the efficiencies of our job. So as an example, this is District 5, looking at commercial motor vehicle only crashes with fatalities and with serious injury. That was a click of 4 buttons that would take us less than a minute, maybe less than 30 seconds. But again, just showing the powerful nature of the tool to be able to get answers in terms of how to analyze the crash data. Here's another example. The tool can actually rank segments of road and intersections based on 2 different things. The first being a crash rate, so that's the number of crashes by the traffic or traffic volume on that roadway, or looking at a severity rating. So the more severe crashes that you have, the higher the rating would be. Again, this is looking at City of Atlanta, boundaries, pedestrian, non-interstate, and just showing off how the tool helps us with our job to be more efficient. So everyone may not want access to that tool to get a login, and that's okay. What we actually developed on top of that is a public crash dashboard, crash data dashboard. This is accessible now on the GDOT public-facing website. Anybody can can access this and look at the crash data and look at the analytics that have already been performed. We've already had tremendous positive praise in terms of the local involvement in this process, so they can go in and look at their crash data. So now we've looked at the crash data. Well, now we need to actually select a countermeasure that's going to fix the potential issues that we see. First stop is the proven safety countermeasures. This is a list defined by FHWA. We, within Georgia, we do every single one of these countermeasures and more. What is to be said about proven safety countermeasures and other safety countermeasures, some of them tend to be unpopular. And all I can ask, given this platform, is that working from our local level to our districts, all the way to the board, is to show support for any potential countermeasure given the right situation. Next question you could ask me, well, how are these working in Georgia? We know they're proven from a federal level. There's studies to show that these are great safety countermeasures. Well, I'm going to highlight 4 of them for you and let you know how they're doing on Georgia roadways. An R-cut, so that's restricting left turns from a side street. Again, reducing those conflict points. 89% reduction in angle crashes is what we're seeing on average when we're putting in an R-cut. A roundabout, 80% reduction in injury and fatal crashes at an intersection. That's all crashes at the intersection. Rumble strips, 48% reduction in injury and fatal crashes. And a pedestrian hybrid beacon, 86% reduction in injury and fatal mid-block crashes with pedestrians. Another item that was particularly important on me in the first day when I walked into this job is how do we get these safety projects out faster? Well, looking at the streamlined delivery of this, we've done 4 things I want to highlight today. Data-driven safety analysis. I said it again, but we're very committed to that in the safety program. But what I've developed is a programmatic incremental steps to be able to make sure that we're producing the most viable safety projects on all Georgia roadways. It starts with identifying a safety concern, going into what we call a crash screening, which is a custom step that we built within the program. It's a very short, concise document, 2 to 5 pages, validates the crash trends, and determines if we need to move forward with more analysis and actually a report, which then we go into the intersection control evaluation that determines what the preferred alternative would be, a traffic engineering study that documents everything, a way more comprehensive document into concept, and then going into design and letting. During that entire process, we track what is called a safety benefit cost ratio. And if that number ever changes below a threshold, it doesn't make the project viable anymore for the safety program, we go back, look at more practical design, and address it to make it viable as we continue pushing it forward to construction. The one step, the crash screening step alone, and I want to show the importance of why this streamlines delivery, we can make a decision very early in the process instead of jumping all the way into a traffic engineering study, spending more resources and time. We can make that decision really early in the process in a short amount of time and determine which way we need to go with the project. The next thing I want to highlight is menu of service design. I want to show my appreciation for the Office of Program Delivery and Albert and his group. This is something we've worked on in the past year that just kicked off. These are projects, safety projects that require no right-of-way and also limited environmental impact. And we think by reducing those phases in the project or eliminating those phases in the project, we're able to deliver projects a third of quicker. And I'm very optimistic, and I hope some of the projects and my goals is deliver them half the time. Maintenance, again, a great collaboration with the safety program. They do more systemic type safety projects with rumble strips, safety edge, and striping improvements on our roadways. And lastly, district and local coordination. This is particularly important to me. What I've found and what I strive for is get the locals and the districts involved sooner. So in that step 2 process, looking at the crash screening, that's where we're getting locals and districts involved. And what we found is by doing that, you're creating champions on projects, and answering questions early on to be able to make sure that the project has a chance for success. In terms of the district, I meet with every district traffic engineer each month for 2 to 3 hours just to talk about safety. We also do what is called a road safety audit. We do 14 of these a year. This is where we actually go walk a segment of roadway, look at intersections with EMS, fire, police, the mayor, city manager, you name it. We'll get as many people as we can out there to take a look at the roadway, and we document safety recommendations. And these safety recommendations are then turned into maintenance projects, then turned into quick response and capital size projects within the safety program. Another thing I want to highlight is local road safety plans. Again, a great collaboration with FHWA on this. We've done 2 pilots so far in which we actually target local governments to help build a local road safety plan. So we provide the data that I showed you earlier in the new metric tool, and FHWA provides the training to be able to build these plans to help local governments prioritize their funding for safety improvements. Another thing I want to highlight is the Atlanta In-Town Multimodal Safety Study that came out of the safety program. This was a collaborative effort. This was looking at state routes within the Beltline, so Midtown, downtown Atlanta, majority of it, and looking at what is the feasibility to do more transformational projects, more multimodal safety projects. I can say that with success, the program was the study was well received, not only with all of our stakeholders, but we're also building projects out of this study as well. And I have to take a few minutes to brag on my team, but the study did win the 2019 GDOT Team Award. It won the 2020 Blinky Award for Atlanta Bicycle Coalition, and it's also being nationally recognized through the Institute of Transportation Engineers Safety Council. One thing in particular that came out of this study that I want to note that's very important to me is Donnelly Howell, that corridor. That project has a PI and is moving forward with design, and that validated coming out of the study. Lastly, I want to highlight another innovative process, safety equipment purchases. The form that you see on your left would be filled out by a local government or by a district. They would be able to provide us the data, the safety data, and the safety program will actually purchase different pieces of equipment to be installed by the district or local government. Again, trying to get safety improvements out on our roadways quicker, and this is a way that we can do it. We've already seen success with this type of program, and I anticipate more success in the future. So as my 3 takeaways, we went over recent crash trends with the fatality data. You have a good, hopefully you have a good high-level understanding of what the GDOT Safety Engineering Program is and how we streamline processes, innovation, and efficiency. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Very good. Ms. Bowen?
Thank you for that report. It's very good. I had a couple of questions as it relates to crash information. I know you've got certain intersection data and improving intersections and that type of thing, but do y'all do any studies on what phones do? You know, we have a phone law in Georgia where, you don't touch your phone, you keep your concentration on driving. A lot of these vehicles today have so much technology of, you can always be fumbling with technology trying to figure out, where you're going or what have you. And aggressive driving. I mean, you look at the amount of aggressive driving, does any of the fatalities or the crash data deal with that type of information?
Yes, sir. The crash data that's provided to us is directly from the officer's reports. So that makes crash data sometimes easy to deal with and sometimes harder to deal with.
Right.
So if the officer doesn't note certain things, such as were they using their phone or were they aggressive, we have to take our engineering judgment in hand to determine what we think could have occurred in that crash. But to answer your question, yes, through the reports that I personally looked through and through the reports that my team has looked through, that is often noted in terms of distracted driving, either with cell phone use and aggressive driving, particularly over the past year, with aggressive driving being even more of a note. With less vehicle miles traveled, that means our roadways were more open, so people were traveling at higher speeds. We validated that as well.
Ms. Lewis?
Thank you. Thanks, Sam, for this report. And I know I missed a few points of it because I had to leave the room, and you may have addressed this. but in the efforts that you have pursued here, were there any conversations with law enforcement as it may relate to the aggressive driving and speeding, just from an enforcement standpoint, and helping reduce that type of driving behavior? And if so, what may have come of that?
Yes, sir. And a great question. So we coordinate heavily with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, who is in direct coordination with law enforcement. That's a continuous conversation that members of my team have with them every month throughout meetings. We look at different areas in terms of what changes in training could may be helpful, or what resources or what in type of public outreach could be involved to be able to help with that as well. So the billboards, the radio, social media blasts, that's something, different ways that different organizations are able to get that information out there. We do continuously have that conversation. A lot of times when it comes back to me in that conversation, it's resources. Well, how many resources not only do we have, but resources that they have. I know our law enforcement officers are working the hardest that they can, but a lot of times when they're at a crash, they'll get a call for another crash, so they're going to try to do the best that they can to write down the information, but then they got to respond to another incident. But we're looking at every way to maximize efficiency and how we can provide any additional input from the safety program back to them and how we can make their job easier.
Are there any, Mr. Floyd?
It's just coincidence. I had 2 calls this past week regarding this same thing in the growth areas, particularly on 4-lane roads, where subdivisions are growing up on these 4-lane roads and everything, and roundabouts, question, 4-way lights, which is what y'all are recommending? I mean, is it,
in comparison to a roundabout to a traffic signal, and I think that's your question.
right?
The safety program is going to promote a roundabout. Not to say that a traffic signal doesn't have its place, because in some situations it can. Every intersection is unique until you actually look at the data. But high level, from what I see in a roundabout, going back to the conversation about conflict points and reducing speed, there's an 80% reduction in fatalities and injuries as a whole in that intersection when we put in a roundabout. And that's data from our roadway system. So roundabouts, they reduce speed onto the approaches. So again, if there is a crash that occurs within the roundabout, it's usually a non-injury crash or a low injury crash. Fatalities, serious injuries, not to say they don't happen within a roundabout. Usually that goes back to the other 3 points that I mentioned. People distracted driving, not understanding it's a roundabout, even with the proper signage, and they go through the roundabout. That's when you usually see the fatalities that occur with that. But again, those are rare. But in comparison, the safety program would recommend roundabouts because of their proven success in terms of reducing severity of crashes and reducing crashes in general. Because of that reduction in speeds is entering it, and the reduction of conflict points to the number of ways that you can get into a crash at an intersection.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions from anyone online? Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you.
Right-of-way user fees. Mr. Fields.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak today regarding the request to open for comment on amendments to Department Rules 672-11. First, as a reminder, our intent is to streamline and modernize, recognizing that changes to the telecom industry have occurred over the past 30-plus years. As a brief recap, the rule was open for comment June 17, 2021. A modification of the rule for EMCs occurred July 14, 2021. The rule was adopted August 19, 2021, and the rule became effective September 13, 2021. And now an amendment to the rule is needed for municipal authorities.
State law requires payment to municipal authority by a telephone company where there's no retail end user within the boundary of the municipal authority be determined in accordance with the department's rules. So what is this amendment doing? This amendment includes language that fees set forth in the current rules will not become effective until July 1st, 2022. Prior to July 1st, 2022, the payment rate to municipal authorities by a telephone company will continue based on previously adopted rules, which are rates calculated per mile. There's been ongoing outreach with GMA, and they support the amendment. We have also had informal conversations with various communication providers. And now we're asking for board approval to open the amended rules for comments only on these amendments regarding GMA. And I'll take any questions you have at this time.
Yes, Jerry?
I mean, is this just something to get this plan through? Are there any issues with the plan we have already moved forward with?
No issues with the plan no issues from the department standpoint, but we've had several concerns from GMA, and that's been voiced throughout the open comment period previously. And so this is just an opportunity to give GMA the ability to work on legislation to separate themselves from.
So we are addressing those issues with this?
That is the attempt, sir.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
So if I understand this right also, this is occurring only inside the corporate limits of municipalities. And does this occur on state right-of-ways and local roads, or both, or one or the other?
So the fees for the department are tied specifically to state routes and any permitting related to those routes. So this rule ties municipalities to it when they are governing their local municipality limits, whatever that jurisdiction looks like. So that could be on local routes. It's tied to any franchise agreements that they have, so on and so forth.
Even when it's on state routes.
Yeah.
The law applies to their routes, and so this is basically extending what exists today until July of next year, such that they can get remedy through a legislative process. This is honoring the commitment we previously made and that was presented to you guys last month before you took action. So this is just to come back again to honor the commitment. We couldn't modify the rule without going back out for an extended period, so we wanted to take action as the board unanimously took last month. This is just following our commitment with GMA to give them time to work through, and with our support too. We agree that GMA or municipalities' business plans are much different than ours, where we have to administer their whole state. They're focused on their own city, so this is just honoring our commitment.
But it does include state routes. They can.
Yeah. I'll have to ask legal, maybe legal help on that. This is really addressing, the law addresses their routes. It ties municipalities to our rates. But the clarification is we permit our routes, not them. So we still permit our routes, but not municipal routes. So the law is tied to the municipality routes.
So if a telecommunication company needed to install something on a state route, they would come to GDOT for a permit to do that. And then those fees would be assessed based on the permit for that state route. So there wouldn't be a duplicate effort of having to permit through GDOT on the state route and seeking it through the municipality.
No, I appreciate that and glad to hear it. Part of that concern is with those state routes that run through congested downtown areas. Because, some of those areas are going to require a municipal permit as well as one of our permits. And I didn't know which way fees might be flying, if it's one direction, all directions, and if you need time to look that up, I would be curious to know the answer or solution to that.
Well, no, the clarity is if it's a state route, we permit it, the municipalities don't. If it goes down a state route and makes a turn on a city street, then that's where the city picks it up, so.
And I think it's also worth noting that many municipalities have franchise agreements that GDOT does not entertain or honor in that discussion because, again, we're focused on the installation of the state route.
And you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a motion? Have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, vote aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Thank you, sir. Next presentation we have is GDOT. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, I'm okay. District 2 update.
Secretary Brown.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Secretary Brown, members of the board, Commissioner. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you this morning about the good work we've been doing in District 2. I've been trying to get up here to talk to y'all since COVID hit us, so this will be my third presentation that I put together. May not be any better, but anyway, we'll get started. So just a little bit we're going to talk about, give you some information on District 2, talk about our maintenance projects, excuse me, the accomplishments of our maintenance projects. We'll talk about a few of our construction projects, where we are with them. I've got some quick response projects, one cool little project I'd like to talk about, and then the district's role on the I-16 bridge strike. So District 2, we got 27 counties, of course. A ton of lane miles to take care of, nearly 7,800, and that converts to about 3,200 centerline miles. Of that, I-20 and I-16 in District 2 encompasses 187 centerline miles. In total, of course, local bridges and state bridges combined are 1,862 bridges, and currently we have 367 full-time employees. That leaves us with 119 vacancies that we're desperately working on changing. Maintenance updates, two ways of delivering those types of projects, of course, is the invitation to bid, working with our contractors, and then the maintenance operations, the work that our own crews perform. So in 2021, we had $16.9 million awarded in ITB projects. That equates to 36 projects, and 9 projects have been completed thus far. Pavement preservation has been one of the key components in District 2 for a while now, and in 2021 that was no different. We've invested about 69% of that $16.9 million in pavement preservation. So what does that investment look like? 7,600 tons of patching. There's 35 centerline miles of thin list asphalt. That's kind of what you're seeing on the picture to your right. That also equates to 186 centerline miles of surface treatment, 302 lane miles of crack seal, 900 cubic yards of PCC slab replacement, and 24,000 linear feet of a product called Fibercrete, which is basically just PCC crack sealing. I'll go back to this. This is the picture to your right was completed by Everdyke's Grassing. This is in Wilkinson County. This ITB project went for about $653,000. It was 4 miles long on US 441, and that's a combination of patching, chip sealing, and a thin lift overlay. Gateway project, I was hoping to give you all a more colorful picture or an actual picture of what we've got planned on I-20 as you come in from South Carolina, but this rendering was developed by Felicity Davis out of the maintenance office. It's an ongoing project, if you will. The planning's completed. The NGL Erosion Control Group did this. Went for about $328,000. That got us 154 trees planted and nearly 6,000 plants. And but that work was completed in April, and we'll just continue working it along and see if we can't develop that as the seasons go by. So we'll talk about our maintenance operations. This is the work that our forces completed. Chip sealing is one of our primary responsibilities that we have in District 2. 22.5 lane miles of chip sealing was performed. That'd be the picture that you see on the left-hand side. 1,456 tons of patching. And then our group was able to complete a little over 3,700 miles of shoulder building and shoulder clipping. It was also nearly 8,600 square yards of pavement marking. Hand striping is something we really have been focusing on. That's an area that you see probably as in your travels, where you see the hatching and stuff that needs a lot of work across the state, especially in District 2. And then the 78 lane miles of striping. That little truck on the right-hand side, it only gets us about a mile of striping, but that thing has proven to be invaluable to our resources. Before we had that truck, we had to go out and procure a contractor to come back behind our chip seal operation or our patching operation. So that's really made us a lot, get our stripes down and just move along a lot faster, a lot more efficiently. Mm-hmm. So we'll move over to construction projects. Right now we've got about $324 million in active construction projects, and that looks like 88 projects ongoing right now. So we'll just kind of move through the district and talk about a few of those projects. The first one's 22410 in Bleckley and Dodge. We're in Congressional District 8. This project is 9.5 miles of widening and reconstruction of US 23, State Route 87, beginning at Log Cabin Road and extending south of State Route 257. Notice to proceed was given in 2017 to Everett Dykes Grassing. Current completion date is January of 2022. This is about a $45.2 million investment. Of that, about $6.7 million in TIA funds. 59% complete, meaning that we've got stage 1 completed. Traffic has been shifted, and we are working on the northbound lanes to include everything from culvert extensions or culvert construction and grading. Move to Congressional District 10, talk about 0013614 in Morgan County. This is 8.1 miles of widening and reconstruction on US 441, State Route 24, beginning at the Putnam County line and extending north to Pierce Dairy Road, which is just south of I-20. ER Stell's our contractor. Notice to proceed was given in March of 21. Current completion date is March of 24. This project is about $39.3 million, and they're about 15% complete. Cleaning grubbing operations are complete. Main work that's going on is the pipe installation that you see in that jacket boring operation. There's about 70% of GAB, or our base material, completed in stage 1 as well. And of course, utilities are still being cleared. We'll move to Jefferson County and talk about 22150. This is 2.9 miles of widening and reconstruction on US 1, State Route 4. It's beginning north of Nimrod Road and extending to Clarks Mill Road. This is also known as the Louisville Bypass. We've got a lot of great work going in Jefferson County. The sister projects to the north and south actually puts us over $100 million worth of construction that we'll have going on this year in Jefferson County on US 1 alone. Notice to proceed was given to C&H Paving in January of 20, and the current completion date is September of 22. This project went for $17.9 million, and about $4.9 million of that is in TIA funds. 37% complete. Northbound construction is ongoing, which includes drainage, grading, base paving as well. We'll jump over to Congressional District 12 and talk about 0011660 in Richmond County. It was twinned with Move 5961. This is primarily 3.63 miles of medium barrier installation, and the Move project is actually the bridge rehabilitation. This project begins at Walton Way and extends to Peach Orchard Road, or US 25. ER Snell's the contractor on this as well. Notice to proceed was given in February of 21, and the current completion date is September of 2022. Current contract amount is right at $19 million with an $8 million TIA investment in that. ER Snell's about 13% complete, and as you can see, what they've done so far is really just get the traffic staged to the outside lanes so they could rip up the old guardrail that was in there and doing the grading for the barrier wall. Last project I'll discuss is 210-327 in Richmond County. This is a design build project, so it's by District 2 construction, but nonetheless, it's a very important project to the area. This project replaces 4 bridges on I-20 over the Savannah River and Augusta Canal. Superior Construction Company is the contractor. Notice to proceed was given in January of 19, and the current completion date is September of 22. This is about a $71.9 million project. They're about 25% complete. The construction that's ongoing, as you can see, the lower part of your picture, Construction over the Augusta Canal for Phase 2 is complete for the bridge. They're doing similar construction over the Savannah River as well. And then in the South Carolina portion is primarily where your grading activities are ongoing, where they're doing GAB construction and, of course, concrete paving. So we talk about quick response projects. We have 5 quick response projects that have already been awarded in District 2 for FY22 at about $718,000. We're currently working on 5 other projects that are going to be just over $700,000. To the right of your screen is a project that was completed by Pittman Construction Company for about $89,400. Just as simple as adding a right turn lane on State Route 36 at the Covington bypass. You can already see the improvements it's making in some of that storage and right-hand turn movement in that lower picture. This is a cool project. This is the one I was looking forward to talk to. This is in Milledgeville on the campus of Georgia College on State Route 49. This is a pedestrian scramble. Cool thing about this as you watch the video go through is traffic will eventually stop and the entire intersection is given to the pedestrians. Pretty cool stuff. And that movement there that you see is important. I went to school there for a short time. A lot of the dorms and everything are on that side of the campus, and that diagonal crossing has really always been needed there. Just down from that is also a pedestrian hybrid beacon that was installed along with this project. So really excited about the work we've been doing with Georgia College State University to improve pedestrian movement around campus. But this project was completed by Brooksbury and Haney for right at $181,000. Wrong way. So I-16 bridge strike. I know Brad, as he talked about last meeting, stole a little bit of my glory, but that's okay. Everybody's familiar with the picture on the left. I still can't get over that picture. And when they called me and told me the bridge had been moved 6 feet, I had to get them to tell me 3 different times to really comprehend that. But District 2's main response, main priority on that was, of course, managing the traffic. Just want to make sure that all my employees in District 2 are just know how thankful I am for the work that they put in. There were some long hours put in. We probably started showing up on the scene around 4:30 with our actual crews coming in. One thing we figured out real quick, Kedrick Collins, our district traffic operations engineer, he was the one who came up with the plan to go ahead and separate the traffic northbound. Eastbound traffic went south into Soperton. Westbound traffic on 16 went north into Adrian. But when we got there and you see all that traffic, 21,000 vehicles per day using I-16 through there. On 2-lane roads, surface roads, that just pretty much bogged down Adrian and Soperton. And then the challenge for us was then, of course, trying to move around that traffic and get our signs and everything in. And if I'd have known that C.W. Matthews and their team could move as fast as they did, we wouldn't have put the signs up. We would have just used the 20 message boards that we put out there to convey how the traffic needed to move through the detour. But that said, tons of challenges working through that. One of the other challenges we had after we get to talk with the EMA and the Sheriff's Department was relieving their people that had been there all night long. So around 7 o'clock, we started bringing in additional forces, and we're manning 86, putting in barricades, just trying to relieve all their forces. In total, I think we ended up having like 112 maintenance employees just managing traffic. And the conditions they had to manage it in wasn't very easy as well. We got hit with a couple of thunderstorms. The safety manager took that one. Larry Morris took that picture, and that's Evelyn Collins and Dan Salter of our Louisville area-wide crew. They're at that's 171 and exit 78, and they're directing traffic. He said they never budged. So the rain just poured down on them, and they just kept working there, just doing their job. And you just can't. It just makes me proud to see that. So anyway, but 10 to 12 hours manning these intersections that first day while we had other crews moving around trying to get that traffic under control and get it signed. Also determined that GPS was our worst enemy. Everybody's navigation system gave them the better route to move through that detour than what we were providing. So we ended up dealing with a lot of angry folks that were going around in circles because, of course, 86 was closed, and you'd be surprised at how many people would pull up to a barricade saying, "Are you sure I can't go this way?" So, herding cats. That's kind of where we felt we were at. But you see that 146 employees, GDOT employees were involved from various state offices. Appreciate all the work from everybody. In total, 129 of those were in District 2. Like I said, 112 employees were in maintenance employees. 12 construction employees looked over the force account work with C.W. Matthews and their team. And then we had 2 out-of-traffic operations that took care of the detour signing or the plan for that, and also the timing of the traffic signals, which was very important to keep the traffic moving and get our people out of the road. In closing, I'd like to share a email that went between Caleb Lord, our district construction manager, and Adam Grist. I think it Adam's with C.W. Matthews, kind of captures how well the 2 teams work together. So Adam wrote to Caleb, "Thank you for the opportunity to help. We could not have accomplished what we did without the support and help of your team. We have worked on several emergency projects, and I can honestly say your team was one of the most prepared and supportive teams that we have ever worked with. This made it easy for us to perform, so please share C.W. Matthews' appreciation with all GDOT employees that were involved." That concludes my presentation. Secretary Brown, y'all have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Moore?
Well, I'm going to ask the question. I may direct it at the commissioner as it relates to this project, this situation. What was the final outcome in does the state recapture some of its cost from this particular situation?
You talking about I-16?
Yeah, I-16 bridge.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Bowen, we work to recover the costs that we can recover, and insurance had reached out initially. I know there's probably ongoing conversations to the resolution of that. I don't know that it has been resolved yet, but we do have all the information necessary to try to recover the maximum we can recover.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Bunsell?
I just want to say, Mr. Reynolds and I have been working together for a few years, and he does a fantastic job. As does everyone in his group down there, and I'm really proud to be part of working with Mr. Reynolds.
Yes.
Sometimes he has to educate me on some things.
Very good.
Several people do. Thank you very much, Colby.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Very good. Any further questions? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair online, Secretary Brown, and members of the board. It's great to be back before you, and it's a little bit hard to follow Corbett. I just want to commend him, as you guys just have, for his leadership in District 2. And he was a little bit humble in his words about his staff being out there on I-16, because he was too. And I don't think he left it until I know when he left, everything was well taken care of. But he stayed there a mighty long time, and I asked him how traffic was, and he said, "Boss, I'm in it." so he endured it as well. So, but that's a great presentation, and as he said, he's tried to get here, and we plan to bring each district before you to give updates and to show the great work that the men and women of each district does, and to highlight what District 2 had done, and just the work he showed that their crews provide, and pavement maintenance, and all the things that take our infrastructure that keeps it in the state of good repair. I was sitting there watching that, just reflecting that 6 years ago, we would not have this presentation. I can assure you of that. It would have been, we're going to show you what's all wrong and why we can't fix it. Mm-hmm. And just, it's a point of pride to see what Corbett has done with the District 2, but the other 6 districts as well. That's something, it is a point of pride to see what a great job they're doing and state of good repair, keeping our system sound, and hearing Sam's presentation, safe. And that's our charge first and foremost. I'd like to say safe and sound. So let me jump into our normal report, starting with transportation fund collections. For the month of August, motor fuel collections were $171.3 million. Transportation fees were $18.6 million. That brings it to right at $190 million in collections for August. By way of comparison to the prior month or prior year, same month, represents a 12.6% increase in motor fuel, a 52% increase in transportation fees. So that brings our fiscal year to date to $368 million in collections total, breaking down about 332 in motor fuel, 35.8 in transportation fees. So year-to-date comparisons, motor fuel 9.5% increase, fees about 53% increase. So seeing positivity. Now, again, to try to try to look back pre-COVID impact to how are we doing in collections, going back to fiscal year 21, so this time last year, that's $41 million more in collections. Going back to pre-COVID, we're still plus $26 million in collections. And Angela gave you a great budget report with optimism that came from the Office of Planning and Budget that our revenues have been increased to be reflective of these collections. So those are positive trends for us, for sure, as it relates to revenue. So that is good news. Now, next, let me move into our employment data. As of August 31st, 3,568 regular full-time employees. That includes now 73 temporary maintenance staff. We hired 78 employees, and we had 44 employees separate. And I want to take a little bit deeper dive. You heard Corbett's numbers. Corbett, you said 119, was that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 119 vacancies in District 2. So I give you these reports every month, but I thought it was important to sort of show you in totality of what this looks like. And GDOT is not unlike the economy at hand with vacancies and trying to hire people. So this slide is a little busy, but I wanted just to sort of show you the lift and the great hard work we've done to try to bring people into the department, but yet it's quite the challenge. The table on the left lists by month our full-time head count, basically. And I want you to look at that July of 2020 at the top and where we are now. And in fact, until August, we had declined month over month every year in full-time positions. In fact, for 13 months, we've lost 257 employees net. So that is averaging about 20 employees a month net lost. That, when I say net, I mean we're hiring people, as I just reported, to backfill the separations. And when you look at the table on the right, that is the vacated, again, permanent positions of how many people left each month. And so if you did the math between those two, you can see how many we hired to get to the net. But that's averaging losing 54 employees a month. That's what we're losing, which is a tremendous strain on HR to go try to find and recruit those people. So why are people leaving? 60% of the people leaving are resignations, people deciding to leave on their own account. 25% of those are retirements, and the balance, which is 15%, is dismissal or including death. Death's a small number, but dismissals for some reason or another. So I bring this to you because it is a challenge. And when you hear in the district of Corbett size, 119 vacancies, that is a challenge to recruit and bring people in. I will tell you a little bit more data, and I'll ultimately have HR come and give a more robust presentation. But you see it, you experience it all around Georgia, and not only in Georgia, but in the nation, of trying to get people employed. We've got jobs, we've got good paying jobs. That's something we're going to continue to work on for recruitment purposes, but also we need good paying jobs for retention purposes as well, obviously. Sort of some interesting data. Out of people that apply to us, our capture rate for interviews is only 42% for one reason or another. Either they're not qualified once we review it, or we ask for an interview and they decline.
So the capture rate's only 42%. But out of everybody that's interviewed, we offer 91% of interviewees a job. And there's an acceptance rate of 94% that says, yes, I will come to work at GDOT. But what's interesting is only 78% of them will actually show up for the job between saying yes and time to report. I'm going to tell you, HR and the districts especially have worked very hard to streamline and change our processes so that we can collapse that time of interview, offer, come to work, tighten it down as much as we can. But I'll just tell you that it is a challenge that we face, unlike others. We're not unique to anybody else in business right now, but it is a concern. So thank you for indulging me on that, on headcount. And like I said, I hope to have HR at a little later date come back and provide more. They've got tremendous data and they've done a lot of work. I want them to highlight all the efficiencies they've put in place to try to turn this curve. So the positive note on this slide is the bottom August number showing that we actually net at positive instead of net lost employees for the month. So if we can continue that trajectory, I will feel much better, and you should too.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Is the resignation of employees in a certain area throughout the state?
It's I'll get you that data when we come back, show that. It's sort of all around, but a lot of it is in maintenance operations.
Oh, okay. All right.
A big piece of it.
Okay.
It's hard work. You can work inside in AC, not worrying about traffic, and start at $17 an hour, and we're at $12.55.
Okay.
That's a big issue.
Okay.
Okay, let me move into a procurement report. For August, we had 171 contracts valued at $85.3 million for professional services such as engineering, design, right-of-way geotechnical. That brings our year-to-date total to 371 contracts valued at $198 million. So let me now update you on some projects that opened to traffic in the last month or so. We'll start in Congressional District 3, which is also GDOT District 3 down in Harris and Troup counties. This is a little over 9 miles of milling and inlay and plant mix resurfacing and shoulder rehabilitation on State Route 14. Contractor with C.W. Matthews Contracting Company. It represents a $3.3 million capital maintenance investment, and there's the finished condition. And note that it's got rumble strips in it as well, one of those safety measures that Sam talked to you about. Also in GDOT District 3 in Meriwether County, again, Congressional District 3, GDOT District 3, another capital maintenance project on State Route 18, about 16 miles of milling, plant mix resurfacing, some single surface treatment paving, sort of like Corbett was talking about, which is a great technique to continue to provide longevity to the road and shoulder rehabilitation. The contractor was American Industries. It represents a $3.6 million state-funded capital maintenance investment, and there's that roadway. Moving into Congressional District 9 in Forsyth and Hall counties, major bridge replacement here over Lake Lanier. It represented almost a mile of construction of the bridge and approaches on State Route 369. It's also the Chattahoochee River at that point. This replaced Brown's Bridge, which was built when the lake was built. I believe the lake, the time of that construction, and I don't have it factually, but it's somewhere between 1956 and 1958. And you saw Andrew's presentation on CMGC, and he showed you that picture of the crack on the I40 bridge there across the Mississippi River between Tennessee, between Memphis and Arkansas. That is a fracture critical bridge. Brown's Bridge was a big truss bridge, which is also fracture critical. Similar type bridges, and that was one of our goals, is to replace all those fracture critical bridges. So when one of those members cracked, like on I40, you've got to close that bridge because it actually could fail. So this project got rid of the old truss bridge, a big green truss, as we used to call it when I lived in Gainesville, and replaced it with a more traditional concrete design bridge. Which you can see, this is a big span. It was in deep water. Scott Bridge Company did the construction work. It represents a $32.3 million investment, of which $24.6 million of that came from bridge bond funds. So again, a great project to have completed. And there's even boaters that talk to me about their boating enjoyment of now they go under this bridge. So anyway, great to have this bridge done. It was a narrow 2-lane truss bridge. It improved safety. It's got wider shoulders. So a great improvement there on State Route 369 at the Forsyth-Hall County line. Let me move in now to Congressional District 12 in Burke County, GDOT District 2. So, well, there's another picture of the bridge. You can see the barge and the crane out there still finishing up. And so here we go into GDOT District 2 with a little bit smaller bridge, but just as important, on State Route 56 over Mill Creek. The contractor was United Infrastructure Group Incorporated. It represents a $3.8 million investment, and this project opened up on schedule. So another great bridge replacement on a state route, and you can see that obviously it was built a little offset to provide, a bridge with wider shoulders for improved safety. Now, before I move into sort of our updates and highlights of the great accomplishments of our team, I just wanted to again provide you an update on reauthorization as it relates to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, affectionately called IIJA, which is still the vehicle that looks like reauthorization will move forward on. The bill continues to await a vote in the House of Representatives while the House and Senate negotiate the separate reconciliation process that you're hearing about, which is separate and apart but tied back to the IIJA. The House has adopted a resolution setting a vote for IIJA by September 27th, which would just be 4 days before the end of the federal fiscal year. So it looks like this is going to go down to the wire before Congress takes action or takes no action. So there's been no changes in the bill that we're aware of at this point. So what the Senate brought over to the House seems to still be in effect, and Josh provided you an update on those details last month. So we will just continue to keep you posted, and everybody's watching in anticipation of what may or may not happen. But we'll keep you posted. Now let me move into, again, some of the highlights and the great work of our staff. I want to start with the 2020 Achievement of Excellence in Procurement Award that came from the National Procurement Institute, Incorporated. This is the third time in the last 4 years that our operational procurement team, led by Mary Zyrock, has won this award. And you can see the names for our entire team, because it is a team effort from the Office of Procurement. Let me talk about this award. What it does is it recognizes procurement organizations that demonstrate a commitment to excellence and embrace innovation, professionalism, productivity, leadership, and e-procurement. This year, there were 181 recipients of this award across the United States and Canada. However, get this, GDOT was only one of 7 state agencies in the U.S. to receive this award. So we're very proud that out of the only 7 state agencies, we were one of the award winners. So very excited. Can't say enough of what the procurement team does on the operational purchasing side, on the professional services side. None of these projects come to fruition, and all the things we talk about here, even those invitations to bid that Corbett talked about, without procurement. So they are a vital part of the delivery process. So congratulations to Mary and the team and the Office of Procurement. Now, one of the things Mr. Bowen asked about to Sam about technology and people getting guidance, and Corbett talked about the challenge of how apps and your phone try to guide you in directions you may not need to go in. I'm really excited to share with you the upgrades to our 511 system that has been around for quite some time, and we have refreshed that and modernized it, and it's really awesome to see what we're doing and leading with real-time traffic and travel information. And in fact, this is going to go live in just a few hours. I know this has been a longer meeting. It may be live now, but it's going to go live a little later today by noon. And let me tell you what it's going to do. It updates the system to include a lot of new enhanced things for the app, the website, and even if you call in on the phone. You remember those things? You call people on the phone? You know, I read an article the other day where teenagers now hardly know how to talk on the phone. So you can still call 511 for help. It's an easy dial, 511. So let's talk about the enhancements. It's going to have improved map features, navigational functionalities, and you can customize it for your routes that you like to take. It has step-by-step navigation, the ability to save individual traffic cameras for real-time view of road conditions. And it's really easy. You can pull up the cameras and the signs on your app or on the website and see real-time traffic. I use it all the time. Not while I'm driving, by the way. Don't do that while you're driving. Mm-hmm. Also, as I mentioned, you can customize your preferences for your favorite routes. You can get alerts on the routes that you travel, and also and construction updates as well on the routes you travel. So in addition, the updated 511 mobile app provides users with drive mode to improve safety, battery usage, and data consumptions while behind the wheel. You know, when you plug in your traffic app, it drains your battery pretty quick. So there's actually a drive mode that tries to minimize battery use. Across the website and mobile app, GDOT's implemented a new look and a feel that's improved the functionality and navigation for users. There's sort of what it looks like from an app point of view. Also, on the phone system, will now provide more streamlined menu to get callers and information needed faster. That was one of the previous complaints, is you had to work through sort of a menu to get to the help you may need or information. We've streamlined that as well. So since 2007, Georgia 511 has provided the latest and most accurate traffic information for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week across Georgia's state routes and interstates. And we're really excited that these much anticipated enhancements will certainly provide drivers more information, more data, and of course, real-time information that they can use. So really excited for the traffic operations team and our consultants and contractors to develop this state-of-the-art app that if you watch any of the TV news, they will sort of blot out our 511 logo often, because they use the same data feeds and real-time information. It's, again, not only is it for consumer point of view, but it's used, again, to message traffic information, and anything that enhances messaging traffic information is good for the public. So really excited about that. Now, moving along into aviation, just to update you on two terminal improvement projects underway, one in Cairo down in Grady County, which is GDOT District Congressional District 2, District 4, GDOT District 4, where the city of Cairo and the department's been coordinating to replace the terminal at the Cairo Grady Airport, located off Airport Road, which is just off US 84, if you know that area. The city council approved spending $125,000 toward the estimated $500,000 project. GDOT will contribute $375,000 to this project. And it's anticipated that it will be complete in February of next year. Also on the right, as you can see, Pickens County Airport, which is up in Congressional District 9, GDOT District 6, and the design process is underway to construct a new terminal building there at the Jasper Pickens County Airport off of 515. The project received federal, state, and local monies to fund the construction of the terminal, which is estimated to be $1.57 million. The breakdown on that is federal funding is about $775,000. GDOT's going to put in $792,000, and the local match is $275,000. And I recently had the pleasure to visit with the airport authority up there. They took this picture for posterity's sake, I guess, of me in the rocking chair. But let me just, airport terminal is very much needed. In fact, they warned me about if you needed to go to the bathroom, just be careful not to fall through the floor. So it certainly was. It was an old house basically that was an airport terminal. So, but also I was amazed at what's going on there at that airport there at Jasper Pickens County Airport. they're underway, and I'm gonna back up. It's sort of hard to see in the background, top right of the picture. They're building 10 unit T hangars and also 3 bay box hangars because they have so much expansion and so much activity basing out of their airport. And I talked to one gentleman who had a small manufacturing company, and Janine talked about this in her presentation about freight and logistics and planning, a small manufacturing company there in Jasper, but one of his biggest clients was in Alabama, and they flew in and out on a pretty much a weekly basis to pick up components and parts, and that airport was pivotal to their business. And that if it wasn't for that business that they did in Alabama, he said he didn't know what he would do. So again, how airports really support the state on a business point of view. And with that, let me just remind you and inform you too that just a week ago we had the Joint State Committee on Airport Infrastructure Improvements, and Carol Comer did a fantastic job. Her and her team with Steve Bryan and Leanne Trainer all there. Carol presented to this joint House and Senate committee focused on airport infrastructure. She gave the same information Leanne had provided with you guys about the statewide aviation system plan that we'd put in place, talked about the needs, had great coverage, got covered on WSB radio, and we're also covered in the paper. So we appreciate the House and the Senate for focusing on the criticality of aviation investments. Now let me move in to area of safety. Sam did a great job laying out our state strategic safety plan and what they're doing focused on safety. Again, that's always job one, but it takes partnerships. He talked about the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, who is a strong partner, and is that linkage between us and law enforcement and first responders and the like. But it takes partnerships to do what we do, and we remain committed on Drive Alert, Arrive Alive campaign, as you guys know, and how important that is. But we often look for other partnerships to help the safety message. And with that, we're really excited because I think really they found us and we built this relationship. So I want to give actually Natalie Dell and Andrew Heath a lot of credit for fostering this relationship with Let's See 43 Foundation. The Let's See 43 Foundation is an independent organization created to help reduce the number of distracted driving incidents, ultimately diminishing the number of deaths caused by unsafe driving. So Mr. Bowen is right on target there with, distracted driving in his comments earlier. This foundation of Let's See 43's mission fulfills its mission by encouraging and empowering young people to be positive ambassadors for safe driving, carried out through its 43 Key Seconds initiative. That 43 Key Seconds initiative encouraged drivers to take those 43 seconds to ensure the use of seat belts, check for clarity in their head, not being distracted in your head, having your hands and eyes ready on the wheel and checking your mirrors and everything. And it only takes 43 seconds to do all that, so less than a minute. A big impact. So the Let's See 43 Foundation was established in memory of Philip Lutzenkirchen, shown here on the screen. 43 was his number. He is from Cobb County. He played at Auburn and also in the NFL. But Philip was killed in a car crash as a result of a driver being impaired, driving at excessive speed in an unfamiliar area, and also being impaired. Philip was a passenger and was not wearing his seatbelt, and unfortunately lost his life. His father, Mike, has founded this organization and has worked tirelessly to build awareness through key partnerships, messaging, and action. As you can see, again, there's Philip on the screen, number 43, hence those 43 key seconds. Our partnership kicked off just a few weeks ago at the conference held by the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Our traffic ops and communications team are working with the foundation to create specially branded messaging reflecting this new partnership. And we started with putting this information out on some billboards that's sourced by the foundation themselves, as well as using some of our digital messaging signs around. We put those out before Labor Day, which is always a high traffic day. This is just a start. We're looking forward to continuing to working with I40 Foundation in the coming months and years to help, especially young people. And Mike has really reached out to so many schools and get out there. And I don't think I had a picture of it. Oh, yeah, the key on this image, the 43 key seconds is a physical key that goes on a lanyard that you hang on the mirror, on your rearview mirror, to remind them, and I'm proud to say that my youngest son has that hanging on his mirror to remind him of those 43 seconds that it takes to do those things we talk about. Clear your head, check your mirrors, make sure your seatbelt's on, hands on the wheel, ready to go. So, great partnership. Mike is a fantastic gentleman, and we certainly appreciate him for his advocacy and doing this, and now partnership with GDOT. So we hope we can message even a larger crowd. So that's certainly a positive note before our end. I always, as we've started doing recently, and now that we're sort of in person, a little bit hybrid, it's still hard, but I always like to recognize the faithful service of our employees you've heard so much about. And I've got two here today. One I think is here in person. We'd like to recognize Josh Nix, who is over our audits department for 10 years of service. I think Josh is here. Josh, if you're here, come grab this. Yep, and give him a round of applause. Josh, you're a third of the way there, my friend. Congratulations. The next one is hopefully online today, but couldn't have him here. It's a long way from Jessup, but I'd like to recognize Rob McCall, the district engineer from District 5, for 30 years of faithful service. And I have to say, Rob and I graduated together, so we've known each other for over 30 years. So congratulations to Rob McCall. We'll give him a quick round of applause virtually. Mr. Secretary, that concludes my report. I'll be glad to entertain any questions or comments.
Okay. Any questions for the Commissioner? Any questions from online? No, sir. That'll be it. If there's no further business to be brought before this board, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Yes, sir.